Welcome to another podcast from the Loft at the Great Falls Youth Center in Paterson. Over the last many months, we've been fortunate to have guests who highlight important functions of state government. We've heard from officials within the state's Department of Community Affairs on topics that range from eviction prevention to ending veterans' homelessness. And we even had the president of the state's Board of Public Utilities here who spoke about utility assistance programs. We've been able to host these podcasts because of our friend, Kaya King, Chief of Staff to the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, who understands the importance of informing the public about programs that benefit them. And I'm so proud and pleased that Kaya is with us once again today. And I'm very pleased that today we are joined by Rich Mikutsky, Director of the Division of Fire Safety for the state of New Jersey and also the State Fire Marshal. We're also happy to have a friend closer to home with us, Paterson Fire Chief Alicea. I thank both of you for being here this morning as we discuss firefighter recruitment and fire safety, particularly as we head into the summer months. Now, Kaya, I'd like to turn things over to you.
Sounds good. Good to see you again, Bob.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure. And, I think this particular episode is perfect. The sun is heating up, right? And it's a great time to talk about all things hot and warm, and that includes fire safety. I have been supremely proud of our Division of Fire Safety and the work that they've done to not just, I think, ensure that we've got consistent standards across the state when it comes to fire prevention and safety, but also making sure that folks know about education and resources. Because what I think both of our experts are going to share today is that a lot of this is about community impact. And it's about the ability for folks to know how to be preventative in these issues, how to report affirmatively, and also where to go and get resources so that they're prepared. And when I think about community affairs, a lot of our work, can kind of stem into various areas, but the safety component is a critical part. And Rich and his team have been very intentional about making sure that we are being current and contemporary about how we're sharing information, and also that we're hitting on some of the hot button issues of the day. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. But I want to start first with, I think, trying to make sure that we push out the value of the profession of fire safety. I'll take a little bit of a point from my personal life. I have a daughter who's going to be turning 5. And ever since there's probably been any type of show or even book about how you're helping people, right? Whether it's police officers or firefighters, she's enamored. And I brag a little bit about it to her, and it got me really inspired to thinking about when I was a child and when I would think about, firefighters that would come to our school, being able to really see folks out there, coming and supporting their communities in the worst time, right, of their lives. And when I think about where we are today with that profession, I think we've got to reinvigorate that spark a little bit. I think that there are a lot of opportunities in the profession. And I wanted to, first talk with you, Rich, about how we really start to reinvigorate, folks getting into this profession. And I wanted to start first with really, what are the baselines? What does it take to become a firefighter? And how is the department working to attract that talent? What are we trying to really remind folks about this storied and really invaluable profession and what it does for our communities?
Sure. Thanks, Kai. First, let me start by saying it's a pleasure to be here and speaking about the fire service, something that I've been involved in since 1980. So it's in my blood, as the saying goes. So I love to talk about the fire service, and I love being part of the fire service since then. So the fire service is something that we see starting in getting into the fire service. Not everyone is the type of personality or wants to be the guy or the gal who puts on the turnout gear and puts the helmet on in the SCBA and goes running in the building on fire. There's so many different areas of the fire service that other individuals who aren't as inclined to do those things can get involved in. Everything from code enforcement to community risk reduction to teaching So, there are so many different areas that someone who has an interest in the fire service can use to get into the profession. It's something that, as I said, it's in your blood. Fire service is very generational. I can't tell you how many times I've been to swearing in and promotional ceremonies where a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle of the person getting sworn in or promoted is there in their dress uniform, and holding the Bible and taking part in that process. So it's something that as you're growing up, you see in your parents, you see in your grandparents, you see in your other family members, and that inspires you. You're watching them as a kid growing up to see what they do, and that inspires a lot of people to get into the service. So there are so many different ways that you can enter the service and so many different jobs that you can do. But it's every little kid growing up knows about a firefighter, sees the fire truck, sees the firefighters, what they do. But I don't think it's something that you all of a sudden flip a switch and say, "Oh, I want to do that." It's something that it's ingrained in you. You see it and you grow up, and it's kind of a natural progression.
You're inspired by it a little bit.
You're inspired, exactly.
You had mentioned, I think, a couple of different tracks and instances, and Bob, I think you were curious about that too, right? So, because I think there's a lot of different areas.
I was, and you started to talk about it, but it's much more than just fighting fires, isn't it? It includes, fire inspections, prevention, arson investigations, community education. Can you talk a little bit more about those different paths?
Sure. So we, like I said, especially with code enforcement's number one job is to put the firefighters out of business. Really, when you think about it. So, the codes are built often and unfortunately because of a bad situation that took place. It's a reaction to a circumstance. Not many of the codes are proactive, although we try to be. You can't think of all of the scenarios that you may come across. Yes. But a lot of, like I said, a lot of the code enforcement is reactive. Sure. So if you are really you have that community interest, you have that it's your hometown, and you want to keep the people safe and the buildings there. You may enter through code enforcement because that at the end of the day, if you walk through a building and you find a number of violations, there are all circumstances that could lead to a fire, someone losing their life, someone losing their property. So that's a huge step in assisting the firefighters that are riding on the fire trucks.
You bring back a memory. My first job out of college was in Bergen County in the town of Englewood. And I came out of work one day, and I think it might have even been around this time of year, and there was just huge billows of smoke coming from afar. And it turned out that there was an auto dealership on fire in the town of Hackensack. Mm-hmm. And I think 5 firefighters died.
I remember
that day. It was really, really terrible for the entire state. But I remember as a result of that, there were some reforms that came out. I think it was a truss roof that was the big problem. And then there was a lot of new code written, I think, to deal with that. And so I remember I remember that and understand firsthand why we have to learn from incidents like that and, in fact, change the code to protect people.
Yeah, and actually, that instance you spoke about, we're coming up on the anniversary of that.
Yeah, it was about this time of year.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for explaining that. And one of the things that I just wanted to also ask both of our guests is a little bit about the issue of diversity, because from my perspective, we're seeing more firefighters who are African American, who are women, who are Latino. And are there any special initiatives underway, or how do we increase that trend in order to have even greater diversity in the fire service? Thoughts?
If you turn back the clock, I'm going to say 20 years, there was a court order that came out, called the consent decree. And really what that did is that the goal of that was to increase the diversity in the fire service, because prior to that, there was some, but there was not the diversity that really the goal that was right. looked towards. So the consent decree in itself made great strides in expanding the diversity through ethnic races, male, female. And then once, I think it was probably about 15 years that was in place, and they started taking different municipalities that they targeted, or not targeted, but added into the consent decree. They started removing them because they were hitting the goals that were
That's good.
aimed at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And today we have more women in the fire service than ever. So that is, it's something. It's not the old man's club anymore, like it used to be. It's we're very diverse.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And Chief Alicea, here in Paterson, it seems to me like we have a pretty diverse fire service. But what's your perspective on that?
I think that a city like ours is the natural progression, being that the demographic is mostly African American, Latinos, and things of that nature, and being that we require the firefighters coming in to be residents of the city. There, most of them that apply are born and raised in the city. We do understand that there's some financial struggles with entrance exams and with application fees, or there's a lot of agencies out there or programs that they give. You can hire them and they tutor you on how to take the entrance exam.
Okay.
What we've done in order to increase our numbers for our residents is we provide the Paterson Fire Department provides, we hire those companies. One of those companies, a reputable company that has a track record of success, and we pay and we have the individuals come in for free, the applicants.
Oh, wow.
And these are city residents. They're vetted. We make sure they're city residents, and most of them are, like I said, like you mentioned, they're Latinos, African American. But whether if they're city residents, so that's all that we want them to be, and we make sure that they take these classes for free. We pay for them. They cost, I think it's almost thousands of dollars if they're to take it on their own. We do it ourselves and out of our pocket, and we provide these classes for individuals to raise the numbers from within our city.
That's great. And you yourself are the first Latino fire chief in Paterson's history. What are your thoughts about that? I'm sure you're very proud.
I am proud of it, but I see it as I am just the next chief in the order of succession. I am honored to be the first that I am of Puerto Rican descent. I am the first. I am honored to be Puerto Rican. My family is proud. To me, it is like you said, a trailblazer. To be a trailblazer, to show others that this is not impossible to us. I think it's very special. It's an honor. But I also see it as I'm the next one in line, and I'm going to do what I have to do for this department, for the city, and keep it moving that way.
Well, I think that's a very humble way to look at it, but I can tell you that the entire city is proud to have you as chief, and you are a trailblazer. So thank you for that. Kai, I think I want to talk a little bit about this sort of day in the life. And is there such a thing as a typical day in the life of a firefighter? My sense is that things vary greatly. But Rich, do you want to make some comments on that?
Sure. So you're right. There is no typical day. There are typical things that you do during the day. For instance, at the start of the shift, you'll come in, and the first thing you'll do is you'll make sure that all your gear is ready, and you check it out, your SCBA, and so if when the bell hits, you're ready to roll out the door. And then what you do is this was my typical day. I would, as an officer, I would come in early and meet with the officer I was relieving, just to get a sense for, okay, what happened on the shift before, anything special I should know. And then, everybody would get ready, and then we'd do our morning muster around the kitchen table, which if any firefighter would tell you, the kitchen table is the place in the firehouse. That's where all the world problems are solved. That's where you have your meals. That's where you have all your discussions. But, you would have your morning muster. And as the officer, you pass along to, your crew what was passed on to you. You kind of set your agenda for the day. You try and figure, okay, we're going to do some training this morning, or we're going to do the training this afternoon, all dependent on number of circumstances, weather, and whatever else is scheduled for the day. And then you start your day. And always the last conversation before you break muster is, okay, what are we doing for dinner?
So, absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah. Chief, what's a typical day in Paterson, or is there not a typical day?
There is no typical day, but the fire service is very similar to what Rich just said. It's the same thing. We come in. I came in when I was an officer, a captain, for instance, and I would meet the outgoing captain, get the updates. I would look into what new building hazards we may have, what street closings we have, everything that I need to update my members. Once they check the apparatus, make sure that their gear was in place, we would, just like Rich said, meet around the kitchen table while eating breakfast, and we'll go over some things. So we'll go over, these are the new concerns for today. These are the drills that we have for the day, and basically that's the actual typical part of it. And then the unexpected, obviously, we're an all hazards department. We do fire, EMS, we do rescue, we do dispatch, we do fire prevention, we do basically everything. We're all hazards, anything that hazmat, we're involved. So whatever the day may bring, then we're just make sure that we're ready as best as we can, whether it be, again, like water rescue, high angle rescue, fire, whatever the case may be, we do our best to be prepared, but there is no typical day once the emergency hits.
Right. And then there's those things that no one ever planned for. I remember Hurricane Irene here in the city, and there was a lot of flooding, and the fire department was front and center for that. Obviously, the COVID crisis and the pandemic, the fire department here was front and center responding to that. So when you have those huge events, everyone comes together, don't they, in order to respond?
I believe that the Paterson Fire Department, and I'm sure fire departments throughout the nation, have the innate ability to just respond at a moment's notice and just be ready. And yeah, things are going to happen, but we recover. Things are going to happen, like you said, the hurricane, but we have this ability to just come and set the tone. This is what needs to get done, and let's figure it out and get it done. Yeah. We all know there's risk, but we do it as safely as possible.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing, I think, from both of you, that I think in one level inspires someone who is looking at fire service from a way of being an essential community function, but also getting into this is that the community part is essential, right? It sounds like you were talking about the kitchen table, right? You have to kind of build this connection with your colleagues. And it sounds like, it's familial in a lot of ways, right? You have to protect each other. You're going in, you've got to be responsive. But also it sounds like even the strides and the push to bring in different perspectives, bring in the residents, right, is helping for fire service across the state to be more intentional, to be responsive to the community. And it sounds like it's also something where it's created a good momentum. It sounds like there's a tone that's set, right? I'm sure neither of you have been in each other's respective fire departments, but the standards sound the same. And the standard of showing up, being ready, dealing with contingency, but also making sure that you're supporting each other in those moments, right? Where the call comes in. There's no one else but you all at the end of that. That for me feels really inspiring if I'm looking to, I think, be someone who's young coming up. Maybe I don't quite know exactly where I want to be, but I want to help. I want to feel like I'm serving a purpose. I would love to hear from each of you about, a lived experience, in this service that was really impactful, whether it be responding to a fire emergency, whether it be dealing with an arson related challenge after, or maybe even inspiring youth around you that were, looking for some direction. Can each of you kind of speak to those experiences?
There's a brotherhood and a sisterhood in the fire service like no other. And unless you are part of it, you just can't feel the impact of it. I have lost, and over the past year, I've lost 3 very close friends, firefighters that I worked with, who all passed away, contracted cancer. And one of my closest ones, we just last March, Bobby Allen here in Paterson. To see what the fire service does in the instance of not only when at a funeral, but as soon as we find out they're sick, it's like no other. How we come together, and just that brotherhood and that sisterhood. We do anything for one of our own, for sure. So for me, experiencing that throughout my career, unfortunately, too many times, experiencing the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and just how we come together as a people and as a profession to aid one of our own is just it's something that it makes me emotional just thinking about it.
There's no limits to what we'll do for each other.
Right.
Like Bobby Allen, like he said, his soul rest in peace. Anything we'll cook for you in the firehouse. We're gonna take to the family. You have nothing to worry about. We're gonna do everything. If a member's in a hospital, we're telling the family we're taking care of your food. We're taking care of whatever you need. We'll even take you from point A to point B to the family, and at times even the firefighter, if need be, to make sure that they get the treatment that's needed and the family's cared for. They have enough to worry about at that point. So we're going to do whatever we have to do. And it's a tradition. I see it, and I'm strong on tradition, and I see it as it's a tradition, a fire service tradition, and we uphold that tradition to the highest standards.
That's wonderful, and you can see it and feel it definitely here in Paterson, and I'm sure throughout the entire state. I want to turn to technology, because I'm sure the way that we fight fires in 2025 is maybe different from 1980. Is there anything that you can tell us about technology and what's new that's helping the profession to fight fires better?
So, yeah, the fire service has made tremendous strides over the past couple of decades in the equipment that we have at our availability. When I first started as a firefighter, we had the 3/4 length coats that went down to your knees. We had the roll-up boots, the rubber boots, and a helmet. There was no. We had SCBAs, but there were no bunker pants. There were no hoods, Nomex hoods that we'd wear. The equipment has just gotten so much more advanced, to the point where we used to have, and the chief can tell you, back in my early day anyway, when your ears started to tingle, your ears started to burn, it was getting hot. That's when you had to either start penciling the ceiling with a hose line, or back out, or because that was your indicator. Now firefighters have become so encapsulated with the advanced gear that they don't have the ability to feel that on the ears and until it's too late. To a detriment, that is something that's the fire service has to deal with. Firefighters are just going so far in and not having the warning signs to, okay, it's bad. We have to back out, or we have to slow down, like we used to. So it's good that it's keeping the firefighters safer, but it's also pushing them further into the fire, and it's become more of it's become more dangerous for them.
Got it. How about here in Paterson? Do we have new technology that's helping you?
Actually a computer-aided system. It's been updated. Is an upgrade, and we get to calls faster. We have still the same amount of volume. It's still a high volume of calls, but we're getting to them faster. So we're getting to fires a lot sooner than in the growth stage. We're getting to them in the incipient stage, or putting them out a lot sooner than we would in the past, due to the fact that we're being alerted faster. We're getting there faster. Another piece of technology that I think we've been using a lot more recently is the drones. We've been starting to deploy drones, and what that does in the safety factor is it eliminates that one firefighter that I need on the roof to be my eyes and ears. They're cutting the roof, they're doing their function, but now I can have a drone, and I could assess for their safety, and I can also assess everything around the area. So I think drones is something that we've been pushing towards. We've been using a lot more, and we'll continue to do so.
That's great. That's great.
It's so important, I think, talking about some of these kind of contemporary elements of fire service, right? Like gone are the days, like you said, where there may be antiquated equipment, right? Or even where you all in trying to assess a scene, not just for, your team, but also for the folks kind of around that area, the residents, you have to be kind of faster, a bit more adaptive, right, in that space. And it seems like there's, some emerging challenges, right? In our efforts, even with technology and advancement, folks may forget that there's fire related incidents that kind of come with this, right? We see in stories, I think, a lot of this EV and battery storage issue, right? That's been an incredible hot button topic. And I really actually want to kind of tout, all of the fire departments across the state, our division, in being incredibly proactive and, I'd say aggressive in making sure that folks are educated about these issues, that we're responding, that we're coordinating quickly. But I'd like to hear a little bit for folks that may not know, right? Everybody hears the fun part of EV, right? The convenience of it, but what are the concerns and what are we doing in fire service, locally and across the state, to help, make those incidents as infrequent as possible or preventative completely?
So EVs and lithium ion are really still an evolving technology.
Mm-hmm.
You go into a store and more things are coming out in instead of the plug-in model, the lithium ion battery model. As far as what we've been doing at the division is we've been working over the past couple of years on not only providing training to the fire service in New Jersey on EVs, lithium ion batteries, emergency systems, backup systems, but we've also been working with the legislature and on a number of bills, and actually we have a packet of bills that we're working on right now, which stemmed out of an instance back in February in Perth Amboy, where they had a number of scooters, these lithium-ion battery scooters, catch on fire in a couple of days. And through the investigative process, we found out that these scooters were being sold and with fake UL stickers on it. And it turned out there was a nexus to Jersey City here in Paterson. So, obviously through our network, we put this information out and got all the other fire prevention bureaus involved. But as far as response to them, it's still evolving, and it's a question and it's a concern of the fire service across the country right now. How do we respond to these things? We're still just learning the impact that the off gases have from these batteries on our turnout gear. As far as the poisons and the chemicals, they get in the turnout gear. And there was a department out in Colorado where they had a large incident, and they took all of their firefighters' turnout gears and they washed it 5, 6, 7 times, and they're still coming up with traces of these chemicals in the gear after doing all the. So, it's not only a public safety problem where we're putting the word out to the public. If you buy a battery and you buy a charger, make sure you use those together. They have to be married when they are produced. They're married together. You go into the gas station and you say, "Oh, I need a charger for my phone." That cord you're buying is not married to your phone, so it can cause it can cause overheating. It can cause shorts. It can cause a fire eventually. But public safety and getting the word out to the public just on some precautions that they need to take when charging is something that we've made first and foremost.
Sure.
And Rich, I think to that point, what's interesting is you kind of noted there was some fraudulence there, right? You've got folks, like, for folks that may not know those UL stickers, right? That's a safety standard. That's saying that that's been inspected, right, and verified to a degree. And like you said, there's compatibility. So I think that's also fascinating, because before even kind of learning a bit more of the work that you and the team were doing, there's a criminal element to that, right? You've got something that probably is a bit more mass scale, right? If it's happening in Jersey, it's probably happening everywhere. And I think of the Amazon, $5.99, quick flash in my cart. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to add that. And you don't think conceptually. And I mean, this is kids' toys, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
see some adults on scooters, which is bizarre, but usually you're seeing kids
Yeah.
that are touching these products, right? So that's pretty consequential. And the vigilance has to be high, I'm assuming.
Right. Yeah. It's this just from those couple of instances back in February, this is really blown up, and it's gone to the state police became involved, UL became involved, nationally. Now it's something that's out there for every fire department to look at.
The scary part is they store, the kids don't know, they'll take the scooter and they put them in the home. So they're not thinking, all right, this might ignite or anything of that nature. So it might happen while everyone is sleeping, and that's the scary part of it. And another issue with EV, like you were mentioning, was Route 80. We have a lot of, obviously it's an interstate, and we have a heavy volume of traffic, and we have no hydrants there. So when we have a vehicle fire and an EV, we have to it's a massive amount of water. So we just have to bring engine after engine and relay pump, what we call this a relay pump, and just dump, the water, just keep dumping it. And another thing that I don't think a lot of people know is that when you extinguish an electric vehicle, just because you put it out in the moment doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. It may reignite in 30 minutes, or while the tow company removed it, it might reignite while it's on the tow truck. So a lot of the things that I think and we're implementing, and things that because as the technology evolves, we have to evolve with it. So one of the things that we're implementing, we're looking at different policies and technologies, is following the tow truck all the way to the believe it or not, all the way to their tow company, and make sure it doesn't ignite while they're out there. Wow. And they have to do their part of it also, and be aware of the dangers of an EV. And a lot of these tow companies are also falling in line, but there's a lot of dangers to these EVs and things that people, lithium batteries, that people are just not aware of. And little by little, we have to educate everyone, everyone should be basically hopefully fall in line.
Yeah. The service is stepping out of the house, so to speak. When I think of firefighting, I'm thinking you're heading to a building, right? And what we're seeing now is you've got fire safety challenges mobily in things that we wouldn't assume, right? And there's probably a bit of a false sense of security of some of that because it's a-traditional, right?
Sure. Chief, changing topics here, fire setting behavior, particularly amongst young people, it's a pretty serious issue. It's something that I know that you're involved with, and that there are things we're trying to do to address it. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Sure. So through our community risk reduction unit, youth fire setter intervention is the top priority. Aside from all the other things that unit does, providing fire safety education in the schools, and providing smoke detectors to those who can't come by them on their own. The youth fire setter intervention is first and foremost. Through our fire code in New Jersey, every county is required to have their own county youth fire center intervention program. Not every county has it up to the standards that it should be. It's something that's not a real, for lack of a better word, the sexy part of the fire service. Mm-hmm. But it's something that's certainly it's important. We have individuals who are dedicated to that. I'd mentioned earlier the conference that we do every year. We've done for the past, I think, 23 years. It's a 2-day conference, and we have participants and speakers from all over the country come in. And that alone shows you the importance of youth fire setter intervention. So it's something that's certainly near and dear to our heart, and trying to get the fire service to buy into it and to really promote it sometimes isn't exactly the easiest thing to do. But we do have a great network here in New Jersey where that is our focus.
Sure. And Chief, do we see that as a problem here in Paterson, youth fire setting?
To be honest with you, no, but we do have an aggressive public education program. So our fire companies do go out to every school in the city, every public school, and we do a fire prevention program. We teach kids about fire safety, the hazard of fire. We have a state-of-the-art unit, fire prevention unit, where kids can take tours. They can fill up with smoke. They can.
Oh, wow.
We have a kitchen, a bedroom in it, and they can see. Basically, it looks like with the microwave igniting on fire.
Okay.
So we teach them the dangers. We teach them that. I found that initially when I was a young firefighter coming on, that we would go to these schools and just put our gear on and just basically scare the kids. So now we teach them we're not really here to help you. And so I think we're pretty aggressive in our public education, and I think kids. So I don't see that problem as much, and I think I'm grateful for that.
One of the things that we do is we operate a preschool here in Paterson, and I can tell you the day that the fire truck arrives is probably one of the banner days of the year. Kids are just curious, and I imagine starting to get kids to understand that their firemen are their friends, and to get that education at the earliest age is important. What do you say?
Correct. That we're their friends, and the dangers of what fire, and their escape routes and things of that nature.
And I'm just remembering you participated in our Read Across America this year, and you brought somebody named Sparky, right?
Sparky. We have a Sparky, the actual person that it's in the costume. We also have the little remote control vehicle that we drive everywhere, and and it's a Sparky, the dog on it, and kids love that day, and that's how we kind of we get their attention, and we teach them the safety and the hazards of the dangers of fire.
And I imagine it's just never too young to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely not.
And you're never too old to stop learning either.
That's true.
We have we promote a program. It's called After the Fire, and it stemmed from the 2000 fire at Seton Hall, where the three individuals lost their lives. There are two. They were two roommates, Sean and Alvaro, and they were badly burned. And they started this program called After the Fire. And what they do is they go around to we sponsor a number of these programs around high schools around the state, and they'll go in and they will give their story as to, it was a typical night and they were in bed and the fire alarm went off. It was 20 degrees and nobody wants to go outside because it's so cold. And all of a sudden now there's smoke coming under the door. Yeah. So they go through the whole thing, and then they go through their recovery process at St. Barnabas at the Burn Center. But it's just a tremendous reminder for the high school seniors who are going off to college, just really what can happen and how your life can change in an instance.
Sure. And if memory serves me correctly, there was a young lady from Paterson.
Dana Christmas.
Christmas was her last name.
Yes.
Who unfortunately was burned pretty badly.
She was.
Yeah. And so that was a terrible, terrible incident.
Yeah. One of our firefighters is Christmas last name, and he's related.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. So to your point, just always learning from tragedies and then doing things, because I think one of the things that came out of that was maybe that dorm was not sprinkled, right? No sprinklers.
That is correct. So the Phoenix from the fire there was in New Jersey, and historically the legislative process, as we know, in New Jersey isn't exactly quick. Right. In less than 9 months, they were able to pass legislation and get funding to sprinkler every dorm in every public school in New Jersey.
I remember that. Yeah, one of the instances where the legislative process moves very, very quickly. And by the way, I'm going to go off script for a moment, because talking about legislators, I have to say that here in Paterson, we are always very, very proud of our late Congressman, Bill Pasquale, because he was such a champion of the firefighters, not only here in Paterson, New Jersey, but nationally. He was a leader in ensuring that resources were provided to fire departments. I'm sure you remember him fondly.
I was very close with Bill, as I am with his family, his sons. Yeah. Bill was our godfather to the fire service. Yeah. He really was. I can remember conversations back in, I guess, around 98, 99, of when he came up with this idea for the the AFG grants, and then eventually that a couple of years later, the SAFER grants for manpower. And I can remember sitting around the table and just a whole group of fire service leaders just bouncing ideas, and he took it and he ran with it. Congressman Pascal, Congressman Henny Stoyer from Maryland.
Oh yes.
They were the champions, and fire service lost a great advocate.
We sure did, and fortunately though, maybe 5 years ago, and you may have been there, the fire headquarters was named for
after
Congressman Pascal.
I was there.
That was a great day.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it really was.
He was a big reason the growth of our fire department here in Paterson was through his grants and things of that nature.
Yeah, wonderful man.
So I want to make sure, we end with some important parting words. And when I say parting words, I think in the sense, something that I think people can leave with, and let's make it a little contagious, right? How do we get folks thinking about fire service, what they can do to be participatory, but also to be a part of it, right? To be a part of what I'm hearing is a time-honored tradition, but also an exemplary profession. So I wanted to hear from you both, if we've got a listener out there that maybe is, like you said, maybe it's not something that you just flip a switch, but there's a light inside of them, right? There's something that's motivating them to this direction, but maybe they're a little gun shy. Maybe, I think the awesome responsibility that folks in this service carry is not an easy one, but what would you tell somebody who's thinking about this career, who wants to be a part of their community and serve? What advice, what motivation would you share with them?
I would advise them, yes, you obviously have that community, that draw to help the community and to help your neighbors. That's a huge part of it. But, talk to those who are doing it, or those who have done it as a career. Stop by your neighborhood firehouse. If you see the firefighters out there, or, checking out the rig, and just kind of talk to them, get a feel for how they got started, get a feel for what their typical day is. As we talked, just, talk to somebody who's doing it and somebody who's involved in it, and just, pick their brain, and you'll, I can guarantee that as you're doing that, you're going to feel the love for what they do just by talking to them. And that'll help kind of guide you. Is this something I really want to do? And I'm going to say most of the time it's going to be yes.
There's not much more can add to that. It's just it's a risk and reward career. So it's, if you have that thing inside of you that you want to help, you want to make a difference, and there's that little burning I think you mentioned before. It's just for you. Then try it out. Go to, like Rich said, go to the firehouse and speak to someone. Speak to your family, see what they think, and things of that nature. But ultimately, you have to have that desire to just want to come in and help people, and do what you have to do for the community to feel that you're productive.
What I love hearing about this profession is there's a panoply of options, right? It sounds like, not all heroes wear capes. Maybe firefighters should. I don't know if we've got that incorporated at some point in the advancements, but there is a lot of ways to make change, right? There's a lot of ways to help people. So you can start in one direction, it sounds like, with this profession, pivot it to something else, and be able to make a real impact, to set a standard, and an example. Yeah. Well, we thank you both for this time. And I know,
Absolutely.
I can speak for myself and Commissioner, we're so proud to see the Department of Community Affairs in partnership with communities like Paterson, and with our community groups, right? It really is a bit of a taking a village approach. So hopefully that trend in fire service becomes even more contagious across the state.
Yeah. And I echo that. It's an honor to be at the table this morning with two individuals who have clearly decided to dedicate their lives to public service. And for that, we're very, very thankful.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.